At 51 years old, I'm 51. I often worry about my strength, and it's starting to leave me. You know that I'm not as vigorous as I once was. And then sometimes I'm tightening the choke on my. So well, it's an improvised choke on my microphone stand. It was actually a screwdriver that I jammed through the. Anyway, I was tightening that up, and then I shattered the screwdriver in the palm of my hand. And not only am I impressed with the feat of strength, but it didn't even wound me. It hurt and poked a little bit, but I'm not bleeding or anything. So that's exciting stuff. Thank God nothing happened in the last 5 days or whatever it was. Let's go. Welcome back to Trend Takes On 2.0. I'm the Trend from the title of the show. I've been doing this thing for several years. Quite a while. The second incarnation, 2 years now. 2 years. Yep. Madness. I come on this show and I talk about madness. I talk about a society that spirals out of control and how powerless sometimes we all feel in the face of it. I was going to come back Monday. Today's Tuesday. I was going to come back Monday, but I ended up having two doctor's appointments with the big kid. So I took her to both of those, and I also did lunch with my partner. So we were. I ran out of time really fast yesterday, and I was like, yeah, priorities being what they are. So I didn't get to do the show yesterday. I'm going to do it today instead. It is a primary day in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I believe Connecticut. I think that's right. So there are some fun races to watch. I pay attention to all these things nowadays because it's an obsession. I'm trying to deliver a better world for my kids. So I have to be paying attention, and I have to act when I can. So that being said, what happened last week? I had a lot of different ways I could go with today's show. There was an executive order changing the vaccine schedule yesterday. First of all, unnecessary. You don't have to sign an executive order to change the vaccine schedule. Secondly, they changed the vaccine schedule because they don't know what they're fucking doing. Shocking. And I'm talking about RFK Jr., Health and Human Services, and there was nobody from the CDC there because why would you have anyone from the Centers for Disease Control there to talk about vaccinations that keep us from having diseases? Why would you do that? Yeah. I'm not taking any health advice from a guy that eats roadkill and does heroin and cocaine off of toilet seats in clubs. I mean, he may not still do that stuff, but he's done it in the past. And I don't think he's a very reputable person to listen to at this point. And I know I make fun of his paralyzed vocal cords, but yeah, you are not a shining example of health. You're a fucking terrifying cautionary tale. Okay? There you go. And then Donald Trump had the audacity to sit there and say that when his kids were vaccine age, babies, infants, toddlers, that he took them to every doctor's appointment and they spread out their vaccines. So they had to go multiple times. Anyone who believes that Donald Trump has ever taken his kids to a doctor's appointment, needs, you know what? The word gullible is not in the dictionary. Don't believe me? Look it up. Ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. I could talk about the vaccinations thing. I've talked about it in the past. It's the continued onslaught on expertise, science, technology. Like, science and technology are inconvenient truths for these people, and so they shit all over them. Now, there are ineffective technologies. I wouldn't want to say what ineffective technologies those are, artificial intelligence, that these people are all in on for reasons that should be pretty obvious, the unemployment of multiple white-collar individuals. They just want to do away with the working class so that the rich can keep as much money as possible. So you can't trust them on that. Donald Trump runs around saying that we are in the best economy ever. That's what he keeps saying. It is the best economy ever to be rich in. You get to keep more of your money, and the Ponzi schemes continue to pay off. Everything from a stock market with artificially inflated artificial intelligence valuations and the companies that support them, to the Ponzi scheme that is cryptocurrency. There's never been a better time to be filthy lucre rich. You know what I'm saying? Not many people are. But those people are super fucking happy right now. As for the rest of us, these are dark times. This is how French monarchs lose their noggins. You know what I'm saying? I'm not wishing violence against anybody. I want these people removed from power and put into prison for the corruption that they've been I was about to say hip deep in. It's more like neck deep in. They're fully submerged in the corruption of our federal government and using its levers of power to enrich themselves. I could talk about the corruption a bit. Sure, I could do that. I could talk about the delusions that the Mad King is having. You may catch my there's some landscaping going on right outside my front window right now. Hi, landscaping guy. He's guys back to me. I could talk about the corruption. I could talk about the delusion. I could talk about vaccines. But you know what I want to talk about? Something weird that broke some breaking news from last night about the trip that Donald Trump took to the G7 in Turkey this summer. I think it was July. Was that last month? It was last month? Anyway, so he wasn't allowed to fly his brand new fancy pants Air Force One that he got free from the Qataris, not Qataris, the Emiratis, the UAE, I believe it was. Or was it Qatar? I forget who gave him the $400 million plane. Gave him a $400 million plane that then the Pentagon spent over $960 billion or million dollars, almost $1 billion, $960 odd million retrofitting so that it could be used as Air Force One, only to have it not have some of the security systems that it needed. So he had to switch to the other Air Force One in Turkey. And here they were about to leave Turkey and the G7. And it turns out there is a credible security threat against Air Force One. So they make this big hullabaloo of Donald Trump getting on Air Force One and then exit him through the catering cart. That is this giant catering cart thing that's used. The memes for this, by the way, are fucking hilarious. And it's one of the few uses of AI that I've really gotten a kick out of. They basically hid him in a big catering van and took him to a different He took him to another plane, to a military a military transport plane, and flew him out that way. And then they flew the Air Force One, the original Air Force One, with all the like reporters that are on it and a bunch of advisors and stuff, kind of the normal people who fly on Air Force One, just minus the president and a couple of his closest peeps. So they flew the plane with the credible threat against it in Middle Eastern airspace, with a credible threat against it. So all those people were in danger, and they didn't care. They didn't have to fly that plane. They got Trump out of there. They secreted him away on a military transport. They did not have to have that Air Force One leave the tarmac. But they did, even with a credible threat against it. And all of those people were, I don't know, put in harm's way for reasons, because they felt like it. I don't know. Yeah. I think that this story, like so many other stories, like everything from the reflecting pool to the ballroom to the slush fund to pay January 6th insurrectionists, and by the way, complete immunity from IRS investigations that benefit the Trump family and his businesses and him. You know, all of these things show us, they're all stories that tell us how little he cares about anyone else, how deep, how thoroughly narcissistic he is, how he is the center of the universe, and all of the rest of us are inconvenient non-player characters in his personal video game. We are fodder. And I don't mean just like regular people who are out here trying to, you know, survive and live lives and raise families and do their little tiny part in a larger society. I mean, even the military personnel that he sends into harm's way with little to no regard or feeling for the danger that they're in, or for the price that some of them pay with their health or even their lives. 18 servicemen and women have perished in this the 6 months of this Iran war that was supposed to take 4 or 5 weeks and be very easy to win. Donald Trump doesn't care about them. He doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care about military service. He doesn't care about anything. All he cares about is how can it serve him? How can I turn this reflecting pool thing into, it's about me. It's about something that I can do. It's something I can put my name on. How do I turn this ballroom thing into making it all about me? It's not the White House. It's not the people's house. The White House isn't the people's house. It's my house. And I get to do with it what I want. Everything from renovate the bathrooms upstairs to tearing down the entire East Wing and installing a ballroom that he claims everyone has wanted for 150 years. I had never heard that. Did they need a space for events? They used to just set up tents on the lawn. White House isn't supposed to be a palace. Its designer and the first president of the United States who along with Congress, greenlit its construction, some guy named George Washington, specifically didn't want it to be a palace. It's the people's house. It's not some kingly castle. The ballroom, were it important, would have been installed from the beginning. But it wasn't. You know, back then they actually had balls all the time. We don't even do that shit anymore. The fuck do we need a ballroom for? Nothing. Yet, there goes more hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer funding for another vanity project that somebody wants to put their name on. Everything has to have his name on it. Everything is about him. Everything is about him, and the rest of us be damned. The rest of the people who are on Air Force One, they're not important to him. Those of us out here just living our lives, trying to do the best we can, we're not important to him. The American economy that is working great for the top 0.1% isn't working great for the other 99.9% of us. Doesn't care. He has to have his jackbooted thugs, these brown shirt ICE jerk-offs out there terrorizing communities in his name because he wants his name on it. They want to be a white nation where women have no say. All you need to know about how racist they are is look at what they're doing to Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed. Donald Trump posted a photo of One America with a photo of him and Melania dressed up in their finest. He's wearing a tuxedo and she's wearing an evening dress, and they're all going to some event. They're all dressed up fancy. And then there's another America next to it, and it's Dr. El-Sayed, Senate candidate El-Sayed, and his wife, his partner, wearing her hijab, and they are in a diner somewhere, smiling for the camera because they're having dinner, they're having a lunch or something, and it looks like they're having a pleasant time. But they're just like regular people, like regular Americans. He happens to be the son of Egyptian immigrants, but he was born in Michigan. He's lived his whole life in Michigan. Two Americas, he says. He's right. Inadvertently, he tells us more than he wants to. First of all, it's totally racist. But more important to me than that, and racism is important. We don't need racist leaders. But bigger than that is that it shows his disdain for the working class, for anyone who is not elite. There are too many systemic barriers to opportunity for people of color in this country. That was the whole thing about teaching critical race theory. Remember that one? Does everybody remember critical race theory? There was this fear that everybody was teaching critical race theory. It's college courses. It's college courses about the systemic racism that's built into the United States as it stands today. And we just don't talk about those things anymore. Remember the End Woke Act in Florida, where Ron DeSantis decided that woke had to die? I talk on this pod all the time about fascism and extremism and blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of extremism in the United States today, and it's not talked about in the same way. Both sides are not the same. We don't get a symmetric ideological examination of extremism in this country. The media has gone absolutely nuts because it's all owned by billionaires, for the record. Has gone absolutely nuts on this quote unquote civil war brewing within the Democratic Party, and how these democratic socialists and socialism is taking over the Democratic Party. And I think it was Harry Truman that said they call everything they don't like socialism. Now the big scare is we're gonna do communism. All the Democrats are commies. They're communists. Donald Trump sat in the Oval Office yesterday and talked about how there should never be extremism that is allowed to take office and run the United States of America. Donald Trump, the most fascistic, extremist president in history, which is wild to say. Telling us we can't have extremism in the federal government is fucking off the wall lack of self-awareness, or just gaslighting at an elite level. The Republicans in charge of this country right now are as extreme as any group we have ever had leading this country. The thing about the 21st century, the thing about 2026 is you fucking know better. You know what I'm saying? You know better. You know where we've been. You know what we've been through. You know what a struggle it was to just give almost equal rights to people of color and women. This is a phrase that I've used way too many times. We're supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to be past this. We're supposed to not be this kind of extreme. But you don't hear the media talking a lot about the fascism of the right, about the might makes right. White Christian people should be in charge and everybody else needs to learn their place. And by white Christian people, I mean white Christian men, and women need to learn their place too. It is gross what they've done to the discourse of this once pretty liberal country. And when they talk about the extremism of the quote unquote far left, they fail to put that into perspective. And that's something that I wish we could do better. The extreme left of the United States is like left of center in Europe. Just a bit left of center. Just a little. They're not commies. The extreme left isn't communist. Nobody's calling for the government to own production of everything. Nobody is calling it. The only person who I've seen coming close to calling for anything like that is Donald Trump himself, who doesn't want media to portray anything that the state doesn't want. That sounds like fascism. That sounds like 1984. That sounds like the Soviet Union. It sounds like North Korea. Yeah. If you're scared of communism, you should be scared of Donald Trump taking 10% of NVIDIA. Intel. What was the company where he took 10% of Intel? That the government now owns 10% of some chip manufacturer because Donald Trump decided that he needed to own it. That they needed to own it. And when I say that the country needed to own it, he needs to own it. Because he thinks of the country and himself as the same thing. That's why he gets to take his plane with him when he quote unquote retires. His $400 million gift. Totally illegal gift. It's just stunning to me how asymmetrical the discussion is about extremism. They're sitting there screaming at the top of their lungs that we're a bunch of communists, that the left is a bunch of communists. What is this, 1952? Is this a McCarthy-era Red Scare? Is that what we're going with? That's what we're going with for the midterm message? Is that Democrats are extremists for wanting things like universal health care? Holy shit. We're so scary. Democrats are extremists because we don't want people held in concentration camps without legal process, due process. Oh my God, we are fucking terrible. We are the worst. Democrats are communists. That's what they're going with. That's what we're going with. A bunch of literal fascists who have turned over the entire United States government to Donald Trump and his little Nazi coterie of advisors like Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth. We've turned over the entire country to these fucking morons who hate people of color. That's racism. Who hate women. That's misogyny. Who really, really hate, non-binary, the LGBTQ community. Like, they don't even think that the LGBTQ community should exist. Really, that's bigotry. I fight every day against racism, misogyny, and bigotry, not just in the words that I use, but in the way that I raise my kids and in the way that I interact with other people's kids. Because if the other person's kid says something out of line, I'm going to call them out on it. I'm going to call out that kid. Now, it's only happened a couple times, ever. I don't think kids, by and large, care. Racism, misogyny, bigotry, it's learned. It's learned behavior. Kids don't care. Kids are just kids. They don't care. They don't care what you look like. They don't care where you're from. They don't care whether you're a boy or a girl. Well, they get to a point where they're like, girls like these things and boys like these things, and I don't like that. And whatever. That's just shared. That's like, what are we into? They're all into video games, so they all play together. They don't care. They don't care. These horrible, horrible prejudices are learned. And the people at the very top of our government, the people in charge of maintaining and ensuring the continuation of our society, are hell-bent on culling it of what they consider undesirable people, which is fucking madness. Donald Trump and the people that he has brought with him are unworthy of the power that they've had bestowed upon them. And they are definitely beyond the pale when it comes to the breaking of the systems that are in place to keep them from abusing their power. And the Republican Party has allowed it to happen. They have been enablers the entire time. The Republicans in Congress could have stopped this gross overreach and the destruction of our society. And that's what's really going on at any point. But they have chosen instead to enable it, to ignore the fact that the majority of the people who are supposed to hold the power in this country, the people hold the power in this country, do not agree with a secret immigration police force. We do not agree with the suspension of due process. We do not agree with the president unilaterally going to war multiple times, for the record. We do not agree with the president imposing taxes upon us all in the form of tariffs without any oversight. We do not agree with a Department of Justice that has been weaponized against the president's quote-unquote enemies, those who would seek to hold him accountable. The people of this country do not agree with Donald Trump and his policies. That is borne out in the 30-ish% approval rating that he has right now. We're a pretty bifurcated society, kind of half and half-ish. Kind of half and half-ish. It's really not. There are thirds. There are three different factions in this country. There are the two political factions. There's conservatism and there's liberalism. And then there is a third of the country that just tries to get by. They struggle every day. That's how I was raised. They struggle every day to make ends meet. They struggle to wake up the next day and just do it again. There are a third of this country that just tries to survive. They just are trying to survive. I've said for ages that if we can ever reach that third of the country and impress upon them that their vote matters, their voice matters, and that they can change the entire trajectory of this country and by extension this planet, the most resource-filled country in the world, is actually run by a minority of its voters. If we could somehow align the unaligned and understand, impress upon them the importance of voting for representatives that share your values, that understand that the people need help. You need help. Because the system has been rigged against you for a very long time. It has been rigged for the continuation of wealth, for the handing down of wealth, for the handing down of power. Money is power. If you ain't got no money to survive, you certainly don't have any money to exercise power. Donald Trump abused his power, continues to abuse his power on a daily basis. And he doesn't care about anyone but himself. And we see that time and time again. So I urge all of you, lovely people who listen to me. I know you're on the right side. Share this post, share this podcast with someone else, and have a discussion about it, because that's how we keep moving forward. We share these things. I'm not an expert on anything except just putting one foot in front of the other and surviving. And I know what the difference is between surviving and thriving. We can do better. We can do better together. And that's the biggest part. We have to find each other, and we have to have these sometimes difficult discussions. The rich continue to get richer, and the rest of us are just trying to survive. And that's not the way democracy is supposed to work. We're all in this together. I say that at the end of every podcast. We're all in this together because we are. You don't have any other options right now. This is your country if you live in the United States. If you don't live in the United States, you have your own country, and hopefully you live in a democracy where you have a voice and you utilize that voice, because the voices of the people are the most important thing. The right gets angry because we believe every voice is important. We, the liberal left, believe that every voice is important. And if that makes us extremists, you need to think about that. If it's an extremist point of view to want everyone's voice heard, then the other extreme is really bad. Please share this with a friend. All right? I tried not to drop too many F-bombs in this one. I tried to be more polite than I usually am. I tried not to be too dynamic. I tried not to raise my voice. But of all of the podcasts that I release, the ones where I talk about the top versus the bottom, I think those are the most important ones, because that's what it really is. What we're really looking at isn't right versus left. It's class warfare. It's the elites versus the rest of us. And they think that they can just spend as much money as they want and get their way. And that's not the way power in this country is supposed to work. I'll be back later this week, and with a shorter episode, I promise. But share this with a friend, please. Share this with somebody who needs to hear it. And I'll be back before you know it. Until then, please be good humans. Okay? It's the least we can do. We're all in this together. The tiny kindnesses matter. I swear. The tiny kindnesses matter. Stay strong. Vote blue. And I'll talk to you soon. Love you.